For those of you who watch my content on a regular basis, you may think that I have some kind of inconsistency when I talk about various different things, especially when, you know, I speak very positively about something and then turn right around and say something very negative about it. For example, I'm going to be talking about immigration today, and in the past, I have made it very clear that I agree with the idea that if you are in this country and you don't have permission to be here, you should voluntarily leave and then come back and try to do it the right way. And if you refuse to do that, then we have the right to remove you from the country, because you came here with a sense of disrespect for our laws and our wishes and the way that we want things to be. And if you don't care about that, then you got to go, man. I'm sorry. Now, there is a difference between taking people out of the country who aren't supposed to be here and what's happening with ICE and some of the things that they're doing when it comes to just grabbing random people off the street, okay? It's one thing if you have a strong, objective reason to suspect that somebody might be here illegally, something that gives you reasonable, or probable cause to believe that, you know, hey, there's a crime happening here, or this person is in a place that they're not supposed to be, or something like that. We use the idea of probable cause to justify further investigations into things. I honestly don't think that, you know, Hispanic men standing in front of Home Depot qualifies. And here's why. While, yes, it's a trope that, you know, illegal immigrants will stand in front of Home Depot looking for work, to jump to the assumption that that's what's happening, to jump to the assumption that there aren't Mexican citizens or Hispanic American citizens standing in front of Home Depot looking for work, that's not probable cause. I know that the trope is so ingrained in our brain that it seems like it should be, but it's not. If you're walking around in public, right, you should not have to fear whether law enforcement is going to stop you on the street because they have some kind of suspicion of you. As an American, I oppose the idea that the police have the right to just stop me because they have some kind of vague suspicion that I might be a criminal. Right? I have a problem with the idea that I have to carry identification around with me all the time, regardless of what I'm doing. Like, I recently made a video where I agree with the idea, where I believe in, you know, online identification if you're participating in certain activities, and I equate it to the idea that we require you to present an ID, right? But those are voluntary interactions. I voluntarily go into a liquor store to where I know I'm going to have to present my ID to get access to the alcohol, right? I voluntarily present my ID if I want to go into a movie theater and watch a movie that's R-rated, right? That's something I volunteer to do, and I understand before I go and participate in that activity that I need to have my ID with me. I volunteer to drive my car around and understand that when I'm driving, I have to carry my driver's license with me. If I wanted to walk or take the bus, I wouldn't have to carry an ID at that point, right? If you are just out in public, you should not have to worry about whether law enforcement is going to come and stop you for any reason unless you are actively doing something that is clearly a crime. And this is where I have a problem with the way that certain things are happening with the deportation issue. You can agree that illegal immigration is bad. You can agree that these people should be removed from the country. But you can also agree that there should be limits to the way that that's done. And, you know, filing out of a freaking Penske truck to go to a Home Depot to grab Hispanic men standing in front of the thing looking for work does fall outside of what is reasonable. It does go past the limits of what, you know, you would think that probable cause would allow. Because being Hispanic does not necessarily make you illegal. Does it increase the chances that you are? Sure. But not to the point where it's reasonable to assume that the people standing in front of there are illegal. This is the problem of becoming ideologically captured by an idea. It makes you less likely to place limits on what you're willing to do to accomplish a goal. There is an evil that comes with the idea where you say the ends justify the means. Because what ends up happening are all sorts of unintended, horrible consequences to people. Should Hispanic American citizens have to feel uncomfortable walking around in public because they're worried that ICE is going to show up and arrest them because you look like you might be illegal? Like, you know, I'm sorry, I don't like playing the whole race game, and I tend to lean towards, you know, traditional American values. And at the same time, if you are a Hispanic American, you should feel comfortable walking around in public and not have to worry about whether you're going to get stopped. But at the same time, if you're here illegally, right? If you're here illegally, there should be a little bit of a fear that maybe something's going to happen where law enforcement stops you and then they figure out that you're not here correctly. But to have ICE just pop into a Home Depot parking lot is past that limit, right? I tell my wife all the time, because, you know, this is a passionate issue for her. She is a Mexican American. She is an American citizen, but she has a certain heart for the people who are here illegally, because it's just, you know, it's part of her culture. That's just the way that it is. And I tell her, you know, I disagree with the idea that people are allowed to just come in and do whatever the hell they want. And I agree with the idea that they should be deported and sent back where they came from. But I also don't feel like we should be going out of our way to find anybody who isn't hurting anybody else. Right? Hispanic Americans standing out in front of a Home Depot isn't hurting anybody. They're not committing any crimes with what they're not actively committing any crimes with what they're doing other than being here. And because what they're doing is something that any American citizen should be able to do, going in and raiding a Home Depot like that, it makes the rest of us feel like, oh, well, if they're just going to grab people in public like that, why wouldn't they do that to me, right? Like, as an American citizen, even if I know that if they arrest me for whatever reason, thinking I'm some kind of illegal immigrant, and I know that once they identify me, they'll let me go, why should I have to go through that? Why should I have to go through a traumatic experience of being arrested by ICE because they think I'm something that I'm not? Right? We live in a society where we believe in the idea, or at least we used to believe in the idea, it's better to let 10 guilty people go free than to have one innocent person punished. Right? I should never have to walk down the street. My wife should never have to walk down the street and worry about whether law enforcement is going to harass her for any reason, as long as she's not doing something that is clearly a crime. Right? If I'm driving down the road at 70 miles an hour in a 50, I expect to get pulled over because I'm actively doing something wrong. Right? But if my wife gets pulled over because she looks like she might be an illegal immigrant, well, no, she's an American citizen. Why are you bothering her? And it's the same thing here. If Hispanic American men are standing out in front of a Home Depot, there is nothing in that act that is criminal or breaking the law or any of those things. And this is where we reach the limit of what any reasonable, even conservative-minded person should find acceptable. I'm all for, if you have information about an illegal immigrant living in a house somewhere and you have enough information to justify that, yeah, this person's probably here illegally, we have enough evidence to show that we need to go to this house and grab them, that's reasonable. That's probable cause for a crime being committed, because now you have enough information to detain them. And then generally, you're going to get a court order from a judge to go do that. But just yanking people out of a Home Depot parking lot, or just random, you know, people who look a certain way walking down the street, or any of that kind of stuff, you know, we're starting to get into way past what's reasonable and way past what we as American citizens should be allowing our government to do. So, as I always say in all of my videos, more than one thing can be true at the same time. You can be an avid supporter of dealing with the immigration problem that we have here, removing people who aren't supposed to be here, requiring people to go through the proper process to come back in here, but also accept the idea that We don't want to live in a country where people are just yanked off the streets just because you look a certain way. You can think both of those things at the same time. That does not make you that doesn't make you anti-ICE to think that. You can think both things at the same time. What makes that possible is you believe in the idea that there should be reasonable limits on the processes that we implement. Because once you start saying that the ends justify the means, eventually that kind of stuff gets turned against you, and you're not going to like it when it happens to you. So that's what I wanted to say. Hopefully that makes sense. If you set your passion aside long enough to really think about it, you'll understand what it is that I'm saying. If you can't get past anything other than, we need to get rid of the illegals, you're not going to hear what I'm saying. And if you can't get past the idea that ICE is evil and needs to do this, then you're only hearing part of what I'm saying. We have to set aside our passions and prejudices and all of that stuff and try to get to the core issue of what's happening. We have laws here. Our laws should be enforced, but at the same time, we want to maintain a free society, and you cannot do that by just doing whatever the hell you want because you decided that this is the end result that we're going after. And that requires restraint by our law enforcement. And the only way that's going to happen is if we as citizens require them and discipline them when they don't. That's just how it is. So hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you for the next one.